So I've heard you speak a lot about corporate entrepreneurship specifically, and you've drawn sort of a distinction of that there were 4 distinct models or variations of this. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, the labels may change a little bit. We're just in the middle of this particular effort, but I'll give you an idea of what they are. First of all, you can think about the driver. Steve Jobs would be a great example, obviously, of a driver. People that had to be entrepreneurs. I mean, there was just no other question about who they were going to be and how they were going to do their particular ideas translate them into the world. That's a very distinct type of entrepreneur. It's a type that tends to be focused very much on the product idea that they have. Sometimes they can be difficult to work with because they're so focused and fixated almost on the solution that they want to bring into the marketplace. And they assume that the world will catch up with their wisdom and their brilliance. A second type, fundamentally different than that, is what we call the explorer. And the explorer is somebody who is really a problem solver. They didn't necessarily see themselves initially as an entrepreneur, but they fell into it, sometimes even by chance. Somebody who got fascinated with a particular problem and ends up deciding that creating a business and perhaps a whole new product in order to solve that particular problem is the kind of person in mind here. And you could think about somebody like Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx. You know, she asked a very simple question: why are pantyhose made the way they're made? And that led her to a discovery process that led to what is now a multi-billion-dollar valued organization. Jessica Alba is an example of a slightly different type, somebody that we call the crusader. The crusader is somebody who wants to make the world a better place, wants to make the market a fundamentally better place. They're driven by a sense of mission. In Jessica Alba's case, that was basically creating a portfolio of products that were healthier and safer for infants and young children, because that was her challenge that she was trying to solve. And then lastly, you have a type that we've nicknamed the captain. And the captain is somebody who is really about the team. They want to basically figure out a way in which they can tap the reciprocal talents and skills of their colleagues in order to accomplish the mission at hand. Now, every one of those types has its strengths and weaknesses. And the nice thing about it is, although there are examples of each of those types that are very famous, those same personality characteristics can be found in millions of people around the world. And therefore, I think the challenge for corporations is to figure out how they can locate those kinds of people, figure out how to tap into their unique strengths, perhaps assemble teams with them that compensate for some of their weaknesses. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants to improve their odds of success in what is a very high-risk endeavor, starting a new business.
So, but what about for the more established businesses and organizations? If they're looking to pull in this entrepreneurial type, the different types you're talking about, would one of those be an easier fit?
No, I don't think so, because every organization's culture is quite different. Some organizations pride themselves on an almost tenacious single-mindedness around product execution. Well, in that kind of environment, one of the types, for example, somebody like the crusader might have a difficult time adapting to and aligning with the internal culture that they're going to need the support from in order to be able to launch their particular business. So it's a question of aligning and fitting the type to the context more than it is looking for one particular type as opposed to another, because you can get success around founding teams led by any of those 4 personalities.
But is it more of a chicken or the egg sort of thing? I mean, because if you have a driver personality like a Steve Jobs, I mean, he established his own company, that was it, you know, and so he was the leader. Did the culture follow from that, or would it have been harder for that kind of, you know, driver personality or type to fit into a more traditional?
Yeah, I think in that sense you're probably right, that it's a question of alignment, not clashing. It's great to look for diversity. In fact, there's a lot of recent research that begins to document what many of us saw as common sense, and that is that the more diverse your team, the more able you are to make better decisions because you get the benefit of these different perspectives of common problems. So it's not about getting people who think alike or act alike. It is a matter of what my co-author Chris Keeney and I talk about as polar complements rather than polar opposites. That you can find pairs of these characteristics that may nest together very nicely and leverage one another, as opposed to the clash that you sometimes would get. For example, if you tried to put a new driver into a driver culture, that's kind of difficult.
Almost like a color palette.
It is that to some extent. Now, it very much is that, that some things clash and others complement. And since the odds of creating a new venture are so difficult anyway, we think that the issue of trying to focus on the things you do have control over, which are obviously your own personality type, but also picking people with the kind of characteristics that might lend themselves to a greater degree of success in an entrepreneurial venture, probably is advice well taken.